The ancient database. The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. Sarah Chen's boots as she made her way through the newly discovered tunnel complex. Her headlamp cut through the darkness, illuminating walls that seemed too smooth, too perfectly carved to be natural. After 15 years of Martian archaeology, she thought she'd seen everything the red planet had to offer. She was wrong. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this." Marcus's voice crackled through her comm system. Her graduate student's usual calm demeanor had given way to barely contained excitement. "Chamber B7. It's unlike anything we've ever found." Sarah quickened her pace, careful not to disturb any of the site's pristine conditions. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber that their initial scans had missed entirely. Some kind of natural Martian mineral in the surrounding rock had blocked their equipment. But what waited inside defied everything they thought they knew about Mars's history. The chamber walls gleamed with an iridescent sheen that couldn't have survived millions of years of exposure. In the center stood a pillar of what appeared to be black glass, its surface etched with patterns that seemed to shift and move in her headlamp's beam. Marcus stood before it, his scanner forgotten in his slack grip. "It's powered," he whispered as she approached. "After all this time, it still has power." Sarah's scientific mind rebelled against the possibility, but her instruments confirmed it. Beneath the glassy surface, energy signatures pulsed in regular patterns. This wasn't just some ancient artifact. It was active technology, waiting. "Have you tried interfacing with it?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Marcus was brilliant but cautious to a fault. "Waiting for you, Director." But he hesitated. "The patterns, they're not random. They're repeating in sequences of 8, like binary code." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Binary was universal, the simplest way to encode information. If this was some kind of data storage device, she connected her tablet to the scanner, running it through the standard first contact protocols developed after humanity joined the galactic community. The pillar's surface rippled like disturbed water. Symbols began appearing in the air above it, a holographic display that should have been impossible for technology this old. But what made Sarah's breath catch wasn't the display itself, but the symbols it showed. That's impossible," Marcus whispered. The symbols were English, ancient, archaic, but undeniably human letters floating in the air of a Martian cave. "GENITT verification. HCE assessing emergency LRCHIVBTA7. Sarah's hands trembled as she worked to establish a stable connection. The implications were staggering. This wasn't alien technology that coincidentally understood English. This was human technology, buried on Mars millions of years before humans were supposed to have achieved even basic spaceflight. The hologram expanded, filling the chamber with streams of data. Historical records, technical specifications, star charts, all written in that same archaic English. Sarah's translation software worked to decode the older linguistic patterns, and as it did, a story began to emerge that would shake the foundations of galactic society. "Director," Marcus's voice cracked. "These dates, they can't be right. They're saying this facility was built over 15 million years ago. By humans." Sarah's eyes raced over the data, her mind struggling to accept what she was seeing. According to these records, humanity hadn't evolved on Earth. They had retreated there. The Mars facility was one of many emergency archives scattered across the galaxy, preserved in case the worst happened. And the worst, it seemed, had happened. The records spoke of a vast human civilization that had spanned thousands of worlds. They had been the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel, the first to establish a galactic community. But something had forced them to abandon it all, to hide themselves away on Earth, their technology and memories locked away in their genes. "Marcus, look at this." Sarah highlighted a section of technical data. "These aren't just historical records, they're blueprints. Manufacturing specifications for everything from quantum computers to antimatter drives. Knowledge our ancestors hid away, waiting for us to find it again. But why? Marcus asked, his voice small in the vast chamber. Why hide it all? Why go back to the Stone Age? More text scrolled across the hologram, answering his question. Sarah read it aloud, her voice echoing off the ancient walls. Project Renaissance Protocol. In the event of catastrophic civilization collapse, all knowledge and technology will be preserved in secured archives. Humanity will be restored to pre-industrial development on designated Sanctuary World E3, Earth. Genetic memory blocks will prevent premature technological advancement. When humanity naturally rediscovers spaceflight and reaches archive sites, genetic markers will allow access to stored knowledge. This ensures technological development will occur through genuine understanding, rather than mere recreation of lost tools. Sarah sat heavily on a piece of fallen stone, her mind reeling. We did this to ourselves, deliberately. Whatever happened out there was so terrible that we chose to start over from scratch, rather than risk repeating it. Marcus was still scanning through the data stream. There's more, Director. According to this, we weren't just the first spacefaring race. We uplifted other species, helped them achieve technological civilization. The Arxer, the veterans, all the so-called elder races, they were our students. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Martian cold. The modern galactic community was dominated by those elder races who looked down on humanity as primitive newcomers. How would they react to learning that humans were their ancient teachers? We need to contact Earth Command immediately, she said, already reaching for her emergency transmitter. This changes everything. But as she looked at the wealth of information streaming from the pillar, another thought struck her. The genetic locks, the careful preservation, the deliberate technological regression. Their ancestors had planned this with incredible care. What if there was a reason they wanted humanity to develop slowly, to truly earn each step forward? Wait, she said, holding up a hand as Marcus reached for his own transmitter. Before we tell anyone, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Our ancestors went to extraordinary lengths to hide this knowledge until we were ready for it. We owe it to them to be certain we are ready. The hologram shifted, showing new information. Star charts appeared, marking the locations of other archives. More facilities like this one, scattered across human space. Each would contain pieces of humanity's lost legacy, waiting to be rediscovered. Sarah stood, brushing the red dust from her suit. We do this carefully, methodically. We translate everything, understand everything, and we keep it quiet until we know why our ancestors felt the need to hide it all away. Marcus nodded slowly, his excitement tempered by the weight of responsibility. Where do we start? Sarah's eyes traced the flowing lines of ancient English, the words of their forgotten ancestors. We start by learning who we really are. And then we figure out what made us choose to forget. The pillar hummed softly in the darkness, its surface rippling with the knowledge of a civilization lost to time. Somewhere in its depths lay the truth about humanity's past, and perhaps a warning about their future. As the Martian wind howled outside, Sarah Chen began the task of unlocking 15 million years of human history, one file at a time. She just hoped they were truly ready for what they would find. Diplomatic tremors. Ambassador Kira Padult stood before the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, her heart pounding but her voice steady. The massive amphitheater, designed to intimidate lesser species, now seemed almost ironic given what she was about to reveal. Esteemed members of the Council, she began, her words echoing through the chamber. 3 months ago, we discovered something on Mars that changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history. The holographic displays activated, showing the Mars facility's data in carefully selected segments. Around her, representatives of 200 species shifted in their seats. The Arxer delegation, massive reptilians who typically dominated council proceedings, watched with unconcealed disdain. High Chancellor Vexthor, the Arxer's chief diplomat, interrupted almost immediately. The council's time is valuable, Ambassador. If humans have found more primitive ruins on their dusty colonies, perhaps a lesser committee would be more appropriate. Kira allowed herself a small smile. Chancellor, what we found isn't primitive. Quite the opposite. She gestured, and a hologram shifted to show the facility's dating analysis. This technology was created 15 million years ago by humans. The chamber erupted in protests and exclamations. The veteran delegation, proud keepers of the oldest known historical records, rose to their feet in unified outrage. Their spokesperson's crystalline form flickered with agitation. Impossible. The veteran's harmonics cut through the chaos. Our civilization's records stretch back 8 million years. We were among the first to achieve spaceflight. These claims are absurd. Kira held up a small device, a perfect reproduction of the Mars facility's data core, created using specifications from the archive itself. This contains technical specifications for quantum computing technologies more advanced than anything currently in use. Technologies that were standard tools when humanity first reached the stars, eons before any other species achieved spaceflight. The Arxer Chancellor's scales darkened with rage. You expect us to believe that humans, who only achieved basic spaceflight a century ago, were once the masters of the galaxy. This is a transparent attempt to destabilize the established order. We expect you to examine the evidence, Kira replied calmly. Our scientists have already confirmed the authenticity of the archive. We invite independent verification from any council member species. In the upper tiers, the Sentinel delegation stirred. The enigmatic beings, wrapped in their traditional light-absorbing robes, rarely participated in council debates. Their spokesperson's voice whispered through the chamber like wind through ancient ruins. We have suspected something like this, the Sentinel said. There are anomalies in the archaeological record. Technological achievements that seem to appear simultaneously across multiple species as if guided. The chamber fell silent. The Sentinels were renowned for their scientific accuracy and historical knowledge. Their support lent crucial credibility to humanity's claims. Chancellor Vexthor's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. Even if these claims were true, and I stress if, why reveal this now? What do humans hope to gain? Understanding, Kira replied. The archives speak of a catastrophe that forced humanity to retreat to Earth, to deliberately forget our achievements. We chose to start over rather than risk repeating some terrible mistake. Before we reclaim our ancient knowledge, we need to understand what drove us to such desperate measures. The veteran spokesperson's crystalline form pulsed with skepticism, and we are to believe humans chose to devolve themselves, to abandon power and knowledge willingly. The evidence suggests our ancestors were desperate to prevent something, Kira said. Something terrible enough that losing everything we'd built seemed like the better option. We're not here to reclaim authority or demand recognition. We're here because whatever threatened humanity 15 million years ago might still be out there. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Sentinel spokesperson leaned forward. You believe the threat remains active after so long. We believe our ancestors wouldn't have gone to such extreme lengths without reason, Kira said. The archives we've decrypted so far hint at other facilities, other caches of knowledge. But they also contain warnings, fragments of messages urging caution. The chamber's atmosphere shifted subtly. Fear began creeping in around the edges of anger and disbelief. If humanity's claims were true, if something had been powerful enough to drive the galaxy's first civilization into hiding. Chancellor Vexthor's voice had lost some of its hostility. What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador? A joint investigation, Kira said. Representatives from all council species working together to unlock these archives safely and systematically. Whatever drove humanity into hiding, our ancestors seemed to think we'd need the entire galactic community to face it. The Sentinel spokesperson rose. The Sentinels support this proposal, the potential knowledge to be gained, and the potential threats to be understood transcend political considerations. One by one, other delegations began signaling their support. Even the veterans, after much internal discussion, agreed to participate. Only the Arxer remained openly hostile, but they were gradually being isolated by the growing consensus. As the council chamber buzzed with excited discussion and hurried negotiations, Kira received an urgent message from Earth. Dr. Chen's team had decoded another section of the Mars archive. The ambassador's blood ran cold as she read the contents. The warning was clear: what sleeps must not be awakened. The price of victory was too high. The gates must remain closed. Kira looked up at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, all eagerly planning expeditions to uncover humanity's lost legacy. She couldn't help but wonder if they were about to repeat their ancestors' mistakes. But it was too late to turn back now. The truth was out, and its ripples would soon become waves that would reshape the galaxy forever. The Memory Core. The joint expedition ship Unity dropped out of hyperspace at the coordinates extracted from the Mars archive. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, surrounded by representatives from 12 different species. Before them hung a massive structure, a perfect sphere the size of Earth's moon, its surface etched with intricate patterns that pulsed with a faint blue light. By the first light, breathed Ixtal, the veteran scientist. Their crystalline form resonated with awe. "Your ancestors built this." "So it would seem," Sarah replied, studying the readings flooding her tablet. "According to the Mars data, was the Central Archives, the heart of humanity's knowledge storage network." The massive sphere had been hidden in the void between star systems, its existence masked by advanced stealth technology that had somehow remained active for millions of years. Only the activation of the Mars facility had revealed its location, sending out a signal that awakened the ancient construct from its long dormancy. Commander Riza Dalir, the Unity's commanding officer, stepped onto the deck. "All preliminary scans are complete. The structure's internal systems are still functional, and we're detecting an atmosphere inside. The invitation seems clear enough." The invitation was a massive airlock that had cycled open as soon as they approached, spilling warm golden light into space. Above it, in that same Arctic English, glowed the words, "Well, see you, Mami, Houm, Chachel Durayan of Earth." The expedition team assembled in the Unity shuttle bay. 3 humans, 2 veterans, a sentinel, and an Arxer observer who had insisted on being included. As they boarded the shuttle, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were crossing a threshold humanity had deliberately sealed 15 million years ago. The shuttle passed through the massive airlock into a docking bay that could have housed 1,000 similar vessels. As they disembarked, gravity and atmosphere readings matched Earth normal perfectly. The facility had prepared itself for human visitors. The engineering required to maintain these systems for so long. The Sentinel, who called itself Observer, seemed genuinely impressed. "Your species achieved technological heights we had not thought possible." They followed illuminated pathways through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, their footsteps echoing in spaces that had waited eons for their return. Finally, they entered what could only be the facility's central chamber. A vast spherical room opened before them, its walls covered in shifting displays showing star maps, mathematical formulae, and streams of data. At its center floated a cube of what appeared to be pure light, roughly the size of a human fist. "The Memory Core," Sarah breathed, recognizing it from the Mars Archive's descriptions. The sum total of human knowledge from before the retreat. As they approached, the cube pulsed with increasing brightness. A voice filled the chamber, not spoken, but seemingly transmitted directly into their minds in their own languages. "Genetic verification confirmed. Multiple non-human entities detected. Security protocols modified according to contingency Delta 9. Access granted." The cube expanded, its light filling the chamber. Images began to form around them, not holograms, but something more substantial. They found themselves standing in what appeared to be a vast city that stretched beyond the horizon, its towers reaching into the clouds. "Welcome to New Terra Prime," the voice said, "capital of the Human Federation, as it existed 15 million years ago." The scene shifted, showing them fleets of ships that made their most advanced vessels, look like stone tools in comparison. They saw humans walking among stars, reshaping planets, harnessing the power of entire suns. Your species achieved much, observer noted, its usual detachment cracking slightly. Too much, perhaps, the voice replied. The images change, showing darkness spreading between the stars. We discovered something we were not prepared to face, something that should have remained sleeping. The darkness took form, vast shapes that denied description, entities that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the mind could process. Sarah felt her sanity straining just looking at the recordings. The old ones, the voice continued. They slumbered in the spaces between galaxies, dreaming their vast dreams. Our expansion disturbed them. Our technology drew their attention. And when they awakened, the images showed human fleets battling something that couldn't fully exist in normal space. Entire solar systems vanished in reality-warping explosions. The cost of victory was measured in broken worlds and shattered laws of physics. We won, at a terrible price, the voice said. But we knew they would return. Each use of our most advanced technology risked drawing their attention again. So we made a choice. They watched as humanity deliberately dismantled its civilization, seeding other species with carefully limited knowledge, ensuring no one would advance too quickly. Earth was chosen as a sanctuary, its people's memories locked away in their genes, to be awakened only when the time was right. And now you have returned, the voice concluded. The question remains, are you ready to face what waits in the darkness, or will you make our mistakes again? The images faded, leaving them in the chamber with the glowing cube. Sarah's mind raced with the implications. They had found their answers, but those answers only led to more terrible questions. The Arxer observer broke the silence, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. If these old ones still exist, why have they not returned? Surely our current level of technology is safe, the voice interrupted. You were all guided to develop along paths that would not draw their attention. But now that humanity has awakened, now that you have found this place, they will begin to stir. Sarah felt the weight of 15 million years pressing down on her. Their ancestors had sacrificed everything to protect not just humanity, but all life in the galaxy. Now that burden would fall to their descendants. Show us, she said finally. Show us everything we need to know. About them, about our technology, about how to fight them. This time, humanity won't face them alone. The cube pulsed in acknowledgement, and new images began to form. The true legacy of humanity was not just power or knowledge, but the wisdom to know when to step back from the brink. Now, with allies from across the galaxy, perhaps they could find a better way forward. But in the darkness between the stars, something ancient began to dream of waking. Rising storm. News of what the expedition discovered spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. While most species reacted with a mixture of fear and fascination, others saw opportunity in the chaos. The first signs of trouble came not from the darkness between stars, but from within. Admiral Elena Santos stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Prometheus, watching tactical displays track unusual fleet movements across 3 sectors. The Arxer Empire had mobilized its battle groups without explanation, and several smaller powers were following suit. Another archive facility has been attacked, her XO reported, highlighting a system near the Vedran border. Third one this week. Same pattern. Strike Force jumps in, attempts to breach the outer defenses, retreats when local forces respond. Elena studied the pattern emerging on her displays. The attacks seemed random, but there was purpose behind them. Someone was testing the ancient facility's defenses, probing for weaknesses. They're looking for something specific, she said. Cross-reference the attacked sites with the data from the memory core. What makes these facilities different from the others? Before her XO could respond, a new alert flashed across the tactical screen. A massive energy surge had been detected in the Arcturus sector, followed by the sudden appearance of an unknown structure in orbit around a dead world. It's another archive, her sensor officer reported. But this one, It's activating on its own. The facility's emergence triggered something else. Across human space, people began reporting strange dreams, visions of stars and ancient battles, of knowledge locked away in their very DNA. The genetic memories their ancestors had hidden away were beginning to surface. On Earth, the effect was even more pronounced. Dr. Maya Wilson, leading expert on the archive discoveries, documented thousands of cases of spontaneous technological insight. People were remembering how to build things that shouldn't have been possible. It's spreading faster than we anticipated, Maya reported during an emergency council session. The genetic locks aren't just failing, they're being systematically removed. Something is deliberately awakening our ancestral memories. High Chancellor Vex Thor, who had been unusually quiet since the Memory Core's revelations, finally spoke. Perhaps it's not something, but someone. Our deep space sensors have detected anomalies, objects moving in ways that defy our understanding of physics. The council chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what he was suggesting. The old ones were stirring. But humanity wasn't helpless this time. As their ancient memories awakened, they began to understand the true purpose of their ancestors' plan. The forced regression hadn't just been about hiding. It had been about evolution. Our ancestors knew the old ones would return. Maya explained, her eyes bright with understanding. They didn't just lock away their knowledge. They encoded it into our DNA, allowing it to evolve alongside us. Each generation's experiences added to the database, creating new solutions, new ways of thinking. The proof came when the first new human ships emerged from hastily reconstructed shipyards. They resembled the vessels shown in the Memory Core, but with crucial differences. The technology had evolved, adapted, becoming something the old ones had never encountered before. But not everyone wanted to wait for humanity's defensive preparations. A faction of Arxer hardliners, convinced that the only way to survive was to strike first, launched a desperate attack on the Central Archives. They believed that claiming humanity's ancient weapons would give them the power to face what was coming. They were wrong. The attack on the archives triggered defensive systems beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Reality itself seemed to warp around the massive sphere, and when it was over, the Arxer fleet had simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, erased as if it had never been. A demonstration, the Archive's AI announced to all watching, of why such power must be approached with wisdom, not desperation. In the aftermath, the galaxy began to unite in a way it never had before. The evidence was undeniable. Something vast and terrible was stirring in the void, and it would take every species working together to have any hope of survival. But even as preparations accelerated, Elena Santos couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The old ones were awakening, yes, but why now? What had changed? The answer came from an unexpected source. A young human child on a colony world, experiencing the strongest genetic memory awakening yet recorded, drew the same symbol over and over, a spiral of impossible geometry, with a single word in ancient English: gateway. The archives had been more than knowledge repositories. They were keys left behind by their ancestors. And now, after 15 million years, they were about to understand why. The final piece of humanity's legacy was about to reveal itself, and with it, the true purpose of their long sleep. But would the galaxy be ready for what awaited them on the other side of that gateway? As Elena watched her fleet's preparations, she knew they would soon find out. The storm wasn't just rising. It was about to break. Legacy reclaimed. The gateway opened like a flower of light blooming in the void between stars. Ships from every spacefaring species in the galaxy gathered around it, their crews united by a mixture of terror and determination. At their center, the newly commissioned human flagship, Remembrance, prepared to lead them through. Admiral Elena Santos stood at its helm, surrounded by representatives from 200 worlds. The genetic memories had fully awakened now, transforming humanity's understanding of their own technology. But it wasn't just knowledge they had inherited, it was purpose. "The gateway is stabilizing," reported Dr. Maya Wilson, her hands dancing over controls that hadn't existed a month ago. "The archives are aligning. Whatever our ancestors built this for, it's ready." The old ones had emerged from their slumber fully now. Vast shapes moved between the galaxies, defying conventional physics, their mere presence warping the fabric of reality. But they weren't attacking. They were watching, waiting, as if they too were curious about what humanity would do next. It was never about running away. Maya had realized while studying the final archive records. Our ancestors didn't hide on Earth because they were defeated. They did it because they needed to evolve, to become something new. The truth had been encoded in their DNA all along. Each generation that lived and died on Earth had added to the pattern, contributing to a vast evolutionary algorithm. Humanity hadn't just been rebuilding itself, it had been redesigning itself at the deepest level. "All ships report ready," Elena's XO announced. "The Coalition fleet is in formation." Elena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 15 million years of preparation. "Signal the archives. Begin the sequence." Across the galaxy, every archive facility they had discovered began to pulse with energy. The patterns that had seemed random now aligned into a single vast pattern, with the gateway at its heart. As the final sequence initiated, Elena felt something change inside her, inside every human watching. The genetic memories weren't just technical knowledge. They were a key, unlocking potential that had been carefully cultivated over millions of years. Humanity had needed to rediscover spaceflight on their own, to develop their own understanding of the universe, before they could access this final gift from their ancestors. Through the gateway, they could all see it now, a realm their ancestors had discovered, one that the old ones couldn't enter. Not a weapon or a hiding place, but a bridge to something entirely new. "This is what they were afraid of," Maya whispered, watching the readings. "Not that we would fight them again, but that we would transcend them completely." The old ones had been first, had ruled reality itself, but they were stagnant, unchanging for billions of years. Humanity's great sin had been showing them that evolution was possible, that the universe could produce something new. Now, as the gateway reached full power, the truth of humanity's legacy became clear. They hadn't hidden their civilization to protect themselves. They had done it to protect this chance, this one moment when all the species of the galaxy could take a step forward together. "To all ships," Elena broadcast, her voice carrying to every vessel in the vast fleet. "What we do now, we do not do alone. Our ancestors understood that true advancement only comes through cooperation, through the blending of different perspectives and experiences. They left us this gift not just for humanity, but for all life that yearns to grow." The gateway pulsed, its light taking on colors that human eyes had never been meant to see. Through it lay not just a new realm of space, but a new way of existing, one that their ancestors had glimpsed but couldn't achieve alone. "We offer this choice to all," Elena continued, "to remain as we are, bound by the laws of this universe, or to step forward together into something entirely new. Our ancestors spent 15 million years preparing us for this choice. Now it's time to make it." One by one, ships from every species moved forward. The old ones watched, their vast forms twisting in ways that suggested confusion, perhaps even fear. They had expected weapons, defiance, or submission. Instead, they were witnessing an exodus, not away from them, but beyond them. As the remembrance led the fleet toward the gateway, Elena felt a profound sense of completion. Humanity had not been diminished by their long sleep on Earth. They had been transformed, prepared for this moment when they could lead not through force or fear, but by offering a hand to all who would take it. The gateway flared, and the combined fleet of the galaxy ventured forth into something new. Behind them, the old ones faced a truth they had never contemplated in their eons of existence, that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from destroying your enemies, but from becoming something they cannot comprehend. Humanity had reclaimed their legacy at last, But it was not the legacy of conquerors or survivors. It was the legacy of those who dared to imagine something greater than power, something more profound than mere existence. It was the legacy of those who looked into the darkness between stars and saw not an end, but a beginning.